As George Woodcock mentioned, we were friends for more than 20 years. As a matter of fact, he was the third time to be the president of the EU CCC. During my time, I was more or less more than 12 years of DG for European Department of MOFCOM. So we know each other and we exchange ideas and information, from time to time. In my term, I think EU is our #1 trading partner from the day one when I was in the office in 2003, at the beginning of 2003, until my retirement in 2015. And EU was China's #1 trading partner for 13 years, at least. And starting from 2020, China became the #1 trading partner also for the EU. So the relationship, especially in the trade and economic relations, is the most, I would say, the most important sector of our bilateral relationship. Although the Xinjiang so-called human rights problem create a lot of difficulties in our economic and trade dialogue, especially for the BIT, the bilateral investment treaty, which concluded the end of 2020, announced by both our President Xi Jinping together with the EU leaders. But last year, because of the Xinjiang and because the sanctions from the EU Parliament, and also there is a strong response from the Chinese government. So that's created a lot of problems. It's still pending. The problem is that we are from both sides. We are still haven't find any, good ways to solve this problems. I think the BIT is quite important to our bilateral economic and trade relations, and I believe that the HED, which is going to happen this year, and I hope could find the good way, and the good compromise for both parties to find a way to really solve this problem, because it's really no good for European businesses and also for the Chinese. Although we have difficulty, as I mentioned, politically, especially for the Xinjiang problem, but the fact, as mentioned by George Woodcock, that both businesses have a very strong indication that the trade and economic relations are still remaining the most important part. And 90% of the European businesses here in China would like to remain, and less than 10% are considering to leave China because of COVID problem and some other concerns. And I can provide the new figures from my side, from the Minister for Commerce, that the first 5 years of the trade data saying that we have 3,405.19 billion US dollars of bilateral trade, with the increase of 8.8%. So still increasing. Last year, the increase was more than 27%. And investment, as pointed out by our EU CCC president, and from the European businesses, they are still increasing their investment here in China. The first 4 months data was that they have invested 5.7 billion US dollars to China, with the increase of 194%, very close to 200%. The investment from China to EU is very close to 2 billion US dollars, with the increase of 13%. It's much less. I think because of the some problems here in China economically, and also the lockdown and the COVID-19 problems. I think Chinese government indicated very clearly, as mentioned by George Wood, they had a meeting quite recently indicating that China is very much open, much more widely to the outside world. I think that's very much received by the European businesses, although they have some difficulties indicated by the white paper of the EU CCC, and we refer every year of those complaints, and that's also I think contribute to the the movement of China towards more openness. I think their reflection of those business communities from EU is very good for the Chinese to have their improvement in the opening strategy. So what I mean is that I still have the hope that both Chinese and Europeans will continue to have their dialogue, not only online, I hope will also would, in person, so that we can have exchanges and dialogue. I also, in line with what have Mr. George Wood mentioned, we have a lot in common, especially carbon neutrality and research and development, and the new and electricity cars, for examples, and some sustainable development like the wind power and solar power, for example. We have a lot. So what I mean is that we should increase the cooperation and should have a good management of those so-called economic competitions. And if we have a fair competition, I think it's good for both companies. And the Chinese, we don't like the rival, but we have our means to control it. I think we have to have the limitations of those rivals, which have some obstacles for our good cooperation. And we believe the partnership is good for both sides. Thank you very much.